All right, so for this game, we have a couple of things going on here, a couple of things to keep track of. We have a bunch of months, we have these sites that are going to be visited, and we have people who are going to be visiting those sites. Now, the months themselves, they are a sequential component. In fact, if you look at the rules briefly, you can always see kind of certain positions have to, or certain sites have to be visited before or after others, which certainly suggests a certain sequential aspect to the game. So we're going to run the sites across the top. Anytime you have sequencing, you really want to let that be the base of your chart. But then from there, it's a question of what exactly is going to be happening here for those months. And you might have noticed that this game kind of gets convoluted, right? So if you notice that there's anything uneasy or complicated about a game, one of the most important things is you want to make sure to take the time to understand the basics of the game. Much of the game in these situations will be run on those kind of basics. So what exactly is happening here? So we're told that each of those factory sites will be visited by a company's reps, exactly one representative for each site in a month. So wait a minute. Apparently, those sites are going to be visited by the reps, and what's going to happen is you're going to have exactly one rep for each of the sites in each of the months. So that's actually kind of significant. Every single month, what's going to happen? We're going to have each of those sites visited by a representative, which means we're not just trying to figure out for each month kind of which site is being visited and who's the representative for that month. If you're kind of going in that direction, that's not quite what's happening. Rather, every single month, all of the sites are going to be visited, and what we have to figure out is essentially which reps go to each of those sites, right? Specifically, just to reiterate again, we're looking for one rep for every site in every month. So essentially, we'll set this up as a three-tiered game because for each position, we're trying to figure out effectively three pieces of information: who goes to F, who goes to G, and who goes to I. Now, the elements themselves happen to be V, W, Y, and Z, and we're told that they're each going to go exactly 3 times, which kind of makes sense because now if you look at our board, we effectively have, 3 reps in every single one of these months, so that's 12 spaces total, which adds up to our 12 spaces here, right? We have 4 people going 3 times each. So that actually does make sense. Now, let's talk about duplication. I guess, could we have the same person show up, let's say, in a given country more than once, or can we have the same person show up more than once in a given month? Now, they do give us one restriction here where they tell us that each of whom will visit exactly 3 visits, no more than 1 in a month. So in other words, in 1 month, each person cannot go more than once. So we can create a baseline rule that essentially says that you cannot have the same person show up twice in a given month. So that's actually kind of significant in itself because we only have 4 people to kind of work with here, and each month is going to have 3 people assigned to it, which means that during any given month, effectively, 3 of the 4 people are going to show up. There's only 1 person who's going to sit out and I guess take a break. Every single month, you're going to have 3 of your elements in play. So that's pretty good. Now, what about across? Could we have duplication going left to right? And it doesn't quite say otherwise. Technically, we could always have 4 different people show up across, right? We do have the people for that. But it doesn't actually say that we have to, which means that you might, let's say, have V showing up in France twice or, 3 times or whatever. So I guess from there, let's take a look at the rules themselves. So the first rule says that V has to visit Ghana once and India twice, with G visited sometime between the visits to India. So that's quite restrictive. So first of all, we're going to have V in Ghana. Well, actually, I guess that kind of takes care of all 3 Vs, because if we have to have V in G once and then in India twice, that's all 3 of our Vs. So that's actually pretty good. That kind of takes care of that to a degree. And basically, the G is going to have to go between the Is. So essentially, we can say you're going to have VG between the 2 VIs, which means I guess we can say that VG obviously is going to have to go somewhere in the middle here. But otherwise, I guess that's pretty open. But again, it's worth noting these are all the Vs. There are no more Vs that are going to be in play. So that's pretty good. Next, W has to visit G at least once. Okay, so we have to have, I guess, minimum of one WG. I guess we can kind of leave. Actually, that's kind of worth noting, right? We're going to have a W here, and then we're obviously going to have a V there, so that takes out 2 of our slots for Ghana. Next, Y must visit Ghana in a month immediately preceding a month in which W visits Ghana. So essentially, I guess that kind of overrides the previous rule, doesn't it? We're simply going to have a YW block in G. So we can kind of adjust this further. We're going to not just have a W and a V, we're going to have a YW as well as a V. Now, actually, wait a minute. This kind of restricts things pretty heavily. It's worth noting, we could have another W in there, but we just have to have at least one W that's stuck to a Y. But that YW block arguably could only go, I mean, you can't put it in the middle because V has to go somewhere over here. So if we can't put the YW here, it's either going to go into 1 and 2, which actually would mean that V goes in 3, or you're going to have to put the YW in 3 and 4, which means V would have to go here. So this is actually not a bad kind of point to exhaust. We might want to go down this path, but let's take a look at the other rules. Next, Y cannot visit any site in the 4th month. So Y cannot go into 4, so I guess we can say there's not going to be any Y's there. Actually, wait a minute, we said earlier that, okay, so here we go. We only have 4 people. Y can't go into the 4th month, but the 4th month still has to have 3 different people here. So we know who's going to go into the 4th month. It's going to be essentially W, V, and Z. So these 3 positions are essentially, I guess we can kind of say, we're going to have V, W, and Z in there somewhere. Next, any rep who does France cannot also go to India. So I guess F cannot be the same as I. So that's kind of good to know. Well, actually, first of all, we know that V is definitely going to go into India twice. In fact, it doesn't matter that it's twice, but V is definitely going to go to India there, which means V can't go into France. Although I guess we already knew that because we've already accounted for all 3 of the V's. So that's not that meaningful, but I guess we can kind of add a little reminder here that there's obviously not going to be V's there. Otherwise, though, I guess we don't know who else goes into France or India. So you know what? We have our exhaustive kind of setup here, right? We said the Y and W can only go into 2 possibilities. So let's kind of play those out and see where it takes us. So either the YW is going to go here or it's going to go there. Now, in the top scenario, we're definitely going to have a V in the 3rd position. In the bottom scenario, we're going to have that V in the 2nd position for Ghana. And we can also kind of figure out the VI's to a degree, right? Because in the top scenario, we have to have V over here. And in the bottom scenario, we have to have V over there. Actually, wait a minute. We said we have to have V, W, and Z go into somewhere down here. Now, in the top scenario, it's a V down in this position right away, right? Which means that these 2 positions are basically just going to be W and Z, one way or the other. So I guess we can kind of split this over here. We can say this is going to be either a W or a Z. Now, in the bottom scenario, we know that we can't have a V up here, right? Which means that since we have to have a V somewhere, so that's going to have to be a V down here. And then the Z is definitely going to go up there. So that's pretty good. Next, can we do anything else here? I mean, we still have to have, I guess we can say we have to have 3 Y's, but I guess that's still kind of flexible, isn't it? Because the other Y's, you could have the Y here or here, but I guess it wouldn't be both. In other words, in the top scenario, for example, the 2 Y's are either going to go in these 2 positions because if they go up here, then they can't be down here, F and I. France and India don't play nice. So either the 2 Y's are going to go into here or they're going to go into there. But I guess that's still kind of 2 possibilities. We could split that further, but you know what? That doesn't seem worthwhile. So you know what? Let's see what we can do with what we have. This is a pretty good start. So the questions themselves. Question number 18 is our exclusion question. Unfortunately, though, it actually doesn't look like a complete exclusion question. So it's only giving us part of the information, but it's missing India. So you know what? Let's see what we can do with what we have. So first of all, we can't have the same person showing up twice in the same month. Let's see if that's violated in any capacity. And that A looks okay, B looks okay, C looks fine, D looks fine, E looks fine. So it looks like they're not going down that path. I guess let's go through the rest of the rules. So the first rule has that we have to have that V in kind of IGI in that relative order. Now we don't have India given to us, but we definitely have to have a V in Ghana, either in positions 2 or 3. So we can see if anything violates that. So answer choice A is looking okay. B, you'll notice, has V with Ghana in the 4th position, which could not work. So we can get rid of B. Answer choice C has V in 3, that's fine. D has V in 2, that's fine. And E has V in 3, so that's fine. Next, the next rule was that W has to go to Ghana at least once, so I guess we can see if anything violates that. Answer choice A looks like we have a W there. B, we don't care about anymore. C has W. D has W. E has W. The next rule kind of overrode that. We have to not only have a W, but rather a YW. In fact, we probably should have just skipped ahead to the YW rule. Answer choice A has a YW. C has a YW. D has a YW. E does not. It has a WY. So we can get rid of answer choice E comfortably. Next, Y can't go to the 4th month. So let's take a look. Answer choice A is good. Answer choice C is fine. Answer choice D has Y in the 4th month, which certainly does not work. And I guess the last rule is that any rep who goes to France cannot also visit India. So that's going to be kind of hard to test since we don't have India there. But actually, wait a minute. I guess what we could look for is we know that essentially anybody that doesn't show up in these answer choices would have to go to India, right? And we know that everybody goes exactly 3 times. So we're just down to A and C. So as an example, answer choice A has W, Y. W and Y are the only ones in France. But the thing is, so we have 2 W's and 2 Y's there, but the 3rd Y and W goes to Ghana, so that actually looks okay because then there will be no W's or Y's going to India. In answer choice C, what do we have? For answer choice C, we have a Z, a W, Z, and a Y in France. Now, you'll notice that Ghana has the 2nd Z, but there's no 3rd Z over here, which means the 3rd Z would end up going to India, and that wouldn't actually work. So answer choice C effectively then gets disqualified. So the best answer choice to question number 18 then becomes C. Next. Sorry, answer choice A, rather. C is the one that we disqualified. Next, number 19. If V visits India in the 2nd month, well, let's take a look. If V goes to India in the 2nd month, that effectively locks us into this top scenario because down here, V is actually in India in the 1st month. This couldn't be V. So that would lock us into this. Let's see what we can do with that information. The question asks what must be true. V goes to Ghana in the 3rd month, and in fact, yes, it absolutely does. So that's kind of easy enough. The best answer to question number 19 becomes A. Next, number 20 is global. We'll come back to that one in a second. Let's take a look at number 21. If Z goes to France exactly twice, well, if Z goes to France exactly twice, well, first of all, I guess what that would have to mean is that if Z goes to France at all, then we know that Z would not be able to go to India whatsoever. So if Z goes to France exactly twice, the 3rd Z would have to go to Ghana. Now, that actually could be consistent with both of these scenarios, right? We could have Z over here, and the Z could go twice somewhere over there. And here we could have Z twice going somewhere here, and then the 3rd Z would have to go to Ghana over here. But again, we know that the 3rd Z could not go to India, so the 3rd Z would definitely be going to Ghana. So I guess let's hope that's enough information. The question is, what must be true? A, W goes to France exactly twice. So do we have to have a W there? And I mean, it doesn't seem like that's something that would have to be true. We have 2 Zs in France. Why couldn't we instead have, let's say, a Y in France or 2 Ys in France? So, I mean, we could dig deeper into this just to prove it, but again, this doesn't seem like it would have to be true. We can leave it open, but let's keep going. Answer choice B, W goes to India twice. Same kind of problem. I don't think we figured out where the W goes necessarily, so whether it goes to India or to France, it still seems questionable. Answer choice C, Y goes to India twice. Same kind of problem. I don't think we really know what happens to Y. I mean, it could go to India twice, but does it have to? I mean, that seems uneasy. Answer choice D, Z goes to Ghana once. Actually, there it is. We definitely know that Z will go to Ghana exactly once, because if Z goes to France twice, the third Z cannot go to India. It'll have to go to Ghana. So the best answer is B. Next, number 22 is global. We'll come back to that one in a moment. I guess actually all of these are global now. So let's see what we can do with the rest. Question number 20. Which of the following could be true? Answer choice A, 3 representatives visit France at least once. So I guess the question is, could we have 3 people go to France? Well, arguably, I mean, it seems like, why couldn't you? But what do we know? Well, actually, the one thing we know is, I mean, France and India don't play nice. So wait, if 3 people go to India, if 3 people go to France, then those 3 people could never go to India. But there's only 4 people. So if 3 people go to France, you're only going to end up with 1 person left to go to India, but 1 person cannot take up all 4 slots in India. Actually, that's pretty good. So that means that you can't really have 3 people going to France. Actually, we can make a bit of a minor deduction here. We certainly can't have 3 people going to France for that reason, because then there's only 1 person left in India. We also can't have 1 person going to France because they can only go 3 times. You wouldn't be able to fill up 4 slots, which means that because F and I, they would both have to have at least 2 people there, but not more than that, which means really we can actually make a deduction that both France and India are going to basically have 2 people one way or another. So answer choice A for number 20 certainly would not work. Next, answer choice B, 3 people go to India at least once. Same kind of problem. Can we have 3 people in India? No, because that would leave only 1 person to go to France, and then that person couldn't go into all 4 slots. So B is out. C, 1 of the reps goes to Ghana 2 months in a row. So could somebody go to Ghana twice in a row? Well, no, in the top scenario, that certainly wouldn't happen because we have it figured out and there's no opportunity for that. Now, in the second scenario, for that to happen, this would have to be a V, but it can't because V is down here. So it looks like you can't have 2 consecutive Ghanas. Next, 1 of the reps goes to France 3 months in a row. So could somebody go to France 3 times in a row? Now, that doesn't seem implausible entirely. I guess if somebody goes to France 3 times in a row, that would burn them out completely, right? Because everybody only goes 3 times. But for example, over here, we have a Z over here. So couldn't we do something like Z in number 2, 3, and 4? I mean, I guess maybe. And then 1 of Y or W would go into 1. Actually, that might not work because if we have Z in 2, 3, and 4, and then you would have to have 1 of Y or W over here. So let's say this is a Y. The third Y would not be able to go there, but it can't go down here either. So that would actually break. The same thing would happen to W. But again, that's only one scenario, right? What about in the top scenario? Couldn't you do something like Z in 1, 2, and 3, or 2, 3, and 4? Maybe. To be honest, this is open, so we can kind of just leave this open for the time being. And remember, on your first pass through these kinds of questions, try not to dwell too much on the answer choices, just because if you can disqualify the rest of them, then it might be just an easy pickup that way. So for answer choice D, we're not going to go out of our way to prove this one. We'll just kind of keep it open for the time being. Answer choice E, 1 of the reps goes to India 3 months in a row. So I guess that's the same question. Can we have somebody go to India 3 months in a row? Now, India is a little bit better fleshed out. So in the second scenario, that definitely couldn't happen because V is already exhausted, and then at most you only have 2 spaces here. Now, in the top scenario, can we have somebody going 3 times in a row? Well, actually, no, because we're still going to have a V somewhere over here. And that's all the V's right there, right? Which means we wouldn't have the opportunity to have somebody go there 3 times in a row because it couldn't be V. The third V is over here. and otherwise there's only 2 spaces remaining. So answer choice E definitely couldn't work. So it looks like the best answer choice here is answer choice D. It looks like somebody could go to France 3 times in a row. Now, just in case, if you really wanted to kind of prove this, I'm not sure that it's a good idea to do that because we've had already a good enough reason to disqualify A, B, C, and E. But if you wanted to prove this, I guess let's kind of play it out. So we don't know much about Z, so Z seems pretty open, and we know that it couldn't really happen in the second scenario. But in the first scenario, maybe we can make this work. Let's see what we can do. If we do Y, W, V, and then V goes here. Now, I guess let's try, since we already had the Z kind of in that 4th position potentially, could we do something like W can go here, and then this would be a Z, and then we can run 3 Z's in a row over here. And actually, yeah, why not? So we can do the 3rd W rather, could go into this position, and that would just open the last. And yeah, so the 3rd V could go over here, and the 3rd, I guess the other 2 Y's could go into these 2 positions, which is very much plausible. So there we go. We could do somebody going to France 3 times in a row, and that would be Z as an example in this scenario. So best answer to question number 20 rather, would be answer choice D. Next, question number 22. Which of the following could happen? Well, I guess let's play this out. W goes to Ghana in the 1st month. So could we have W go to Ghana in the 1st month? In the first scenario, it certainly wouldn't work, but in the second scenario, actually maybe we could perhaps fit a W over here. That seems viable. Answer choice B. Y goes to Ghana in the 2nd month. Could we have Y? Well, no, that's not going to work. We either have a W here or a V here. So answer choice B is certainly not going to work. Next, answer choice C. Could we have Y go to Ghana in the 3rd month? Now that actually, I mean, we have an exhaustion for that, so that definitely seems plausible. So actually, yeah, that seems fine. Answer choice D. Z goes to Ghana in the 2nd month. No, Z's definitely not going to fit here, so we can cross off D. And E. Z goes to Ghana in the 3rd month, and no, definitely not, because the 3rd month for G is already spoken for. So we're just down to A and C. So that's curious. A seemed fine, but for C, we kind of have a confirmed scenario. I mean, I guess it's not confirmed. We haven't actually tried the whole play out. Maybe we broke something here. But since we have this one pretty much on the board, let's just kind of quickly go through A and see if we can make that work. So you know what, let's just line up a setup. So it would be in the same scenario. The question is, could we place the W in the 1st month? So if we place a W here, I guess what does that tell us? We're going to need one more W, first of all. So I guess our other W is either going to go here, one of these 2 positions, or I guess it could go into one of these 2 positions. Actually, that's going to cause a problem, isn't it? Because so the 3rd W, I mean, let's say the 3rd W goes up top. Well, then the 2 remaining Y's, that wouldn't work, because then the 2 remaining Y's, either they're both going to go down here, but they can't both go down here. Actually, here we go. The 2 remaining Y's, they can't both go down here because the 3rd Y, I mean, we already have a Y in this position. We can't have them go twice in the same month. So our 2 remaining Y's are actually, since they can't go down here, they're going to have to go up here. But if we're going to have 2 Y's somewhere in these 2 positions, we only have room for 1 W at most. So I guess we could perhaps place the 3rd W up here, but then the 2 Z's are going to go down here. Or if we place the 3rd W down here, you're still going to have a Z somewhere down here. So this is actually not going to work. So again, just to kind of recap that, actually, I guess we can simplify this. We have to have 2 more Z's, and your 2 more Z's cannot go into these 2 positions because France and India don't play nice. So you're going to have 2 Z's up top. So you're going to have 2 more Z's in these 3 positions. But that means that if you have 2 more Z's, you can only fit one of W or Y up there. If we fit the W up there, then we can't fit both Y's down here. If we fit the y's up there, well, we can only fit one y up there, which means the third one would have to go down here anyways, so that wouldn't actually work. So it looks like answer choice A doesn't work. So the best answer for number 22 then becomes answer choice C. Now, to be fair, in terms of just your workflow, is it worthwhile to have tested out A? I mean, questionable. You could have kind of just gone with the fact that this seems to be a viable scenario and just kind of run with that. That said, it's a little bit dangerous just because we haven't quite confirmed the entire setup, which means maybe we missed something. Maybe this entire scenario was actually broken somehow and kind of we overlooked it. So it's a bit of a personal call. You could have also kind of went with answer choice C and bounced back to it if you had extra time just to kind of confirm it. You can also kind of gauge the timing at that point. That said, though, again, it seems pretty safe to say that Y could have gone into this position just because we seem to have a pretty solid exhaustion for it, but it wouldn't have been a confirmed scenario in that situation. Anyways, next. Number 23. How many of the representatives are there who could visit a single one of the sites 3 times? So who can go in the same row, a single site, 3 times? So I guess first of all, let's go through who can't. V is going to visit different sites for sure. So we definitely can't have 4 people visit the same site 3 times. And actually, so in the middle here, I mean, Ghana is always going to have 1 Y and 1 W, right? And then 1 V, which means that none of these 3 guys are going to be able to go to the same site 3 times because the most you'll be able to do is that one of them will go twice into Ghana. So those guys are always going to be between different sites. So that knocks off answer choices D and C. We can't have V, W, or Y going into the same site 3 times because each of them is going to go into Ghana, which means you're only going to have them going twice into Ghana at most. So that really just leaves us with 1 or 0. The thing is that we actually confirmed Z back here. So we know Z can go into the same site 3 times in a row, in fact. So we definitely have 1 person who can do it. So the best answer to question number 23 is answer choice B.